The Federal Reserve is only hiking the interest rate a quarter point this time. Only. So it's only going up just a little bit more than historic highs. Only a little bit more. Only damping down your ability to own a home or start a business just a little bit more. I mean, it could be worse. They could be screwing you over a lot more than a little more, but it's still painfully difficult. But we'll talk about the elitist attitude of the Federal Reserve, what this means, and where we go from here. In other news, McCarthy seems hopeful after his first meeting with Biden over the debt limit. The rest of America is going to be screwed, but McCarthy's hopeful. So we'll talk about that and speculate on some of the things that went down in there. Speaking of Biden, the FBI has searched Biden's vacation home and found no classified documents, but there were items that were seized from it in the search. So we'll talk about what the Associated Press wants you to know and what the Daily Wire wants you to know as well. And Nikki Haley has made it official. She is running for president. And I join most people who dislike war and like liberty in a collective no! Although it doesn't really appear that she's probably going to crack 3%. It is going to be all this and more. I got more votes than Kevin McCarthy. I am Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Grant always out here with the hard-hitting questions. I'm going to tell you right now, there are not any of my friends, maybe one, but not as a deepfake, that I want to see naked bad enough to watch a deepfake of. I'm going to tell you that right off the bat. No, that's not going to happen. I don't have anything on the deepfake side of things right now because I still think most of that is a load of crap, but we'll be talking about some other things here. This is going to be a heavily financially centered episode. We're going to be talking about the debt ceiling. We're going to be talking about, well, finance, obviously, and the fact that more Americans are living paycheck to paycheck, even though they're telling us the economy is great and we're growing GDP, when as a matter of fact, the people's wages are not keeping up with that. Well, we're talking about that. We will be talking about the meeting about the debt ceiling as well, and plenty more. I can't believe, Nikki Haley actually thinks that she's going to crack 2 or 3%. I do think that she is going to get more votes than Grant thinks she does, but I don't think it's going to be enough to do anything with. But we'll be talking about that as well. A little bit of a short episode today here. The news has been insanely slow this week. And I do realize that it's really hard for them to come out and talk about a cop killing because all five of the cops killing of a young black man because all 5 of the cops are black. It's really hard to go back and try to pull the Georgia cops killed a dude narrative because that dude apparently shot first. And it seems like there's enough evidence right now where they can't just go oh, well, we're just going to make the assumption because the guy shot first and not take the cop's word for it. I don't know if there was body cam footage, but that story disappeared pretty goddamn quick, didn't it? But, I mean, there isn't really anybody jumping in on the Republican side, and nobody has been courageous enough to try to attempt to run on the Democrat side yet. So, really, honestly, and I'm going to be completely honest, presidential campaign season should be starting right about now, but it's not. So we'll be talking about that as well. Illinois, by the way, losing an appeal over gun control law as well. So that restraining order against that law is going to be staying in place. We got a bit of a mixed bag, definitely, but most of it's going to be finance. So strap yourselves in, save a little bit of money. But if you did save a little bit of money, do feel free to hit the donate buttons, the donate links that are in the description, or maybe watch an advertisement over on the Twitch side. You want to, twitch.tv/JEdgar101. Even a little bit of advertisement, the little bit of advertisement revenue helps there, or you can always go over and use that monthly Amazon Prime subscription. Hey, then you don't even have to pay any cash down. But every little bit helps. We are going to be moving forward on a few things coming up this month, and there's going to be a Give, Set, and Go out as well. So let's get down into the news, and before we get started, make sure you guys go check out great programming such as The Daily Ignoramus, The Breakdown with Birkenhoff, The R-Rated Conservative, The Porch Boys. Go check out Tweets by Brit, Mr. Behavior, and the No Gimmicks podcast as we come together to try to bring you a news and culture experience that is from the common man and for the common man. The Breakdown with Birkenhoff, by the way, returning after a long hiatus, coming out and putting a new video out that is in self-promo in our Discord as well, so go and check that out. And if you're not in the Discord, join the Discord, get in on some of the conversations. At least once a week I sit in the live chat room, the voice chat room, and talk with you guys about what it is that's going on in the news and what's important to you as well. So come back in, join out the fun, get the conversation going, and let's get down into the news. Some live chat up here. Oh, we're talking taxes. Oh, if I make financial, will you talk about it? Maybe. You paid? No. I don't want to see any of my friends naked. Yeah. Luke, we did my taxes today. I'm getting money back, so yay. Your goal should be not to pay and not to owe money. My goal is to pay in. I'm going to tell you that right off the bat. That government is not getting an interest-free loan from me. But that's what we have for that. Let's get into the news of the day. We're going to start with the finance. And looking at the Dow. The Dow spent the majority of the day down, only spiking itself back up after Jerome Powell announced that we are going to be seeing a quarter-point rate hike, and only a quarter-point rate hike. And yes, as I'll be talking about in just a bit, these people out here who want to keep the government spending money but keep you out of the markets because your money overheats too fast because there are too many of us. There's one government and there's too many of us. So when we spend, it overheats the inflation, and that's naughty. That's bad. they're all praising this, and the investor class, who is out of touch with the reality, is praising this right now. And again, as you saw at the beginning, my criticism of the fact of, oh, good, yes, no, we're only getting screwed over a 1/4 percentage point this time, not a full 3/4. But we'll be talking about that as we go along. Let's grab a look at our Bitcoin, which in a similar vein actually took the similar spike. A little bit later on in the day, of course, because the Bitcoin trades 24/7 instead of just between the hours of 9 a.m. and 5 p.m., Monday through Friday. So later on in the day, but still in a similar pattern, the Bitcoin spiked as well, spending a large amount of the day down and then spiking up $580 at the end of the day, gaining 2.5% to $23,770 and 10 US cents. Congratulations, Bitcoin holders. Hold on with diamond hands. And looking at the gas around the Madison area, gas again largely unchanged. The quick trip entering the isthmus actually dropped from 316 to 309 overnight, but that's really the only change that we're seeing around the Madison area. I kind of wish that we could see a gas station around here drop. That would be nice. Now, mind you, again, they're not going up, but still $3.39 is very expensive. But that's what we see coming out of the Madison area. These trends and these gas prices may not reflect your particular gas prices, but they are a trend line to see what gas prices are doing across the nation in general by looking at one market, day in, day out, day over day, and seeing what it does week over week, month over month, and year over year, as we have been looking at this since gas hit its bottom in 2020. Let's see what IBD has to say for the day. On Swing Trader, start swing trading like a pro today. Well, we're not going to do that, but we will see what Ed Carson has to say. Fed Chief Jerome Powell triggers gratifying market rally. Tech futures jump as Meta spikes. From Ed Carson, Dow futures edged lower after hours, while the S&P and the NASDAQ futures rose, with Facebook parent Meta platform soaring on its earnings report. Yes, they sold much more of your data. That followed a big day for the stock market rally as investors hailed Jerome Powell's comments. Apple, Amazon, and Alphabet are on tap. The major indices rebounded on Wednesday, turning higher after the much-anticipated Fed meeting, and especially Fed Chief Jerome Powell. The Federal Reserve raised rates by a 1/4 point and said it still sees ongoing increases ahead. Powell backed that up, but said it's a good thing and gratifying that inflation is coming down even without labor markets weakening. The market rally cleared more key levels Wednesday, while a large number of stocks broke out or flashed other buy signals, including China's search and AI giant Baidu, the chip gear maker Lam Research, networking monitoring software, Dynatrace, Delta Airlines, and more. Meta Platforms' earnings fell short, while revenue and a number of Facebook users topped views. It also announced $40 billion in stock buyback. Notably, the Facebook and Instagram parent slashed its forecast for expenses, including capital spending. Meta stock spiked after hours. Shares rose 2.8% to $153.12 in Wednesday's session, retaking the 200-day line for the first time in more than a year and shrugging off weak revenue guidance from Snap. Qorvo topped fiscal Q3 earnings, but like many other chip stocks, Qorvo guided sharply lower for the current quarter. Qorvo fell solidly in extended trading. Shares of the 5G and Apple iPhone chipmaker popped 4.5% to $113.53 on Wednesday. Elf Beauty crushed earnings views and comfortably beat on revenues. EPS doubled, with the growth of accelerating for a third straight quarter. Sales swelled 49%, picking up pace for the fourth quarter in a row. The cosmetics maker also guided up. Elf Beauty spiked to a record high in overnight action. Shares rose 1.8% to $58.58 on Wednesday, just below the January 6th record high. The anniversary, of course, of the most evil day in history. Early Thursday, drug giants Eli Lilly, Merck, Bristol Myers Squibb report, but Big Pharma, which fared well in 2022's bear market, is lagging so far in growth-led 2023 market rally. Eli Lilly, Merck, and Bristol Myers are below their 50-day moving averages. Late Thursday, Apple, Amazon, and Google report. All are rebounding in 2023, but their 200-day line, they are just below their 200-day line. Google and Amazon rose solidly overnight in sympathy with Meta. As expected, the Fed raised rates by a quarter point on Wednesday, lifting the Fed funds rate to 4.5 to 4.75. That follows a half-point Fed rate hike in December and 4 straight 75 basis point moves before that. The Fed policy statement still stated that policymakers anticipate ongoing increases in the Fed funds rate, a clear signal that the Fed rate hikes aren't finished. Jerome Powell backed that up by saying there's more work to do, later specifying that we're talking about a couple more rate increases. He added that labor markets remain extremely tight. However, Powell also said that the disinflation process has started. What? He noted that inflation is coming down without even without job conditions easing substantially, saying that's a good thing and gratifying. He also said policymakers have no desire to over-tighten. No. Inflation is coming down because nobody has any money to spend. You dolt. We'll talk about that later. The statement appeared to trigger an afternoon rally. On Wednesday morning, the Labor Department reported that job openings popped to 11.01 million, well above views on Friday. The January jobs report is on tap, but Powell's comments suggest that markets need not be quite as fixed on labor data as they have been. The market overwhelmingly expects another quarter-point Fed rate hike in late March, with the odds rising slightly Wednesday to 86%. And we'll be talking about that just a bit more in its entirety. On the futures, Dow futures lost 0.1 versus fair value. The S&P 500 rose 0.3 on the futures, and the Nasdaq futures popped 1 full percent, with Meta leading the way along with Google and Amazon stock. The 10-year Treasury yield rose 2 points to 3.42%, and remember, overnight action in Dow futures and elsewhere doesn't necessarily translate into actual trading in the next regular stock market session. I don't have network television. And by the way, hearing something about MILF Manor, that to me is just another incentive never to get network television again. Grant, we need to go find you a girlfriend or something. Network television is evil. Alright, now with everybody saying how great everything is and how the inflation is easing and how wonderful our economy is, I want to point one other thing out coming from Fox Business. More Americans live paycheck to paycheck. And this, by the way, is going to go along with what I'm thankful for later on today. From Aislinn Murphy. A larger proportion of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck, a report released Monday by Lending Club and Payments found. The percentage of U.S. consumers that lived paycheck to paycheck in December came at 64%, according to the report. That figure equated to about 166 million and marked a 3% jump year over year. In December of 2021, 61% were living that way, the report said. The report, conducted in collaboration with Payments, polled over 3,900 consumers in the U.S. The surveys took place at December 8th to December 23rd. Many consumers making over $100,000 a year, 51% indicated they were living paycheck to paycheck last month, compared to 42% who said so at the same time in the prior year. It also found of those, 16% reported difficulties covering monthly bills. The report showed that for consumers making between $50,000 and $100,000, 2/3 lived paycheck to paycheck in December, and over 3/4 of those earning under $50,000 also said that. Obviously, you can almost not make it at that. I guess I shouldn't talk because I am, and I would not say that I'm living paycheck to paycheck. I mean, it's been a little bit tight for the last couple of months, but that was only because I've been paying rent twice a month. But I'm now out from underneath that, and now I can actually start saving and getting caught back up onto some things. But no, I'm not living paycheck to paycheck. I had a temporary setback where I was, but I'm not, and I just barely crest, or just barely come in under $50,000. So I guess I shouldn't be too critical of that. Those percentages had remained relatively constant year over year, Lending Club Corporation said in a press release. Meanwhile, the report found that 40% of consumers living paycheck to paycheck expressed rosy outlooks for their financial situations. Just over a quarter, 27%, said they expected it will worsen. Inflation was pointed to as the most worrisome factor, by roughly 75% of paycheck to paycheck consumers anticipating their personal finances will see some sort of decline this year. Lending Club said another popular reason was economic uncertainty, of which there is much. Inflation, while still painfully high, gave some indications of cooling in December, as previously reported by Fox Business. The CPI went down 0.1 month over month and rose 6.5 year over year. Data released in mid-January by the Labor Department showed the Personal Consumption Expenditures Index favored the Federal Reserve for gauging inflation, increased 0.1% from November and 5% from the same time last year. So, a lot of information to digest with this. But there are a few things that I want to point out. Number one, this actually may shock some of our modern monetary theory friends over on Twitter, and some of our friends to the left who think that we can just eat the rich and make anybody who's making more than them pay them to live. You know, the Starbucks barista class. But we've come to a point right now where $100,000 household income is really not that much anymore. Which blows my mind. It absolutely blows my mind that we've got that far that quick. And I anticipated that there was going to come a point in my life where a six-figure salary was not going to be that much money. I just didn't think it was going to happen this quick. I was expecting at least another 10 years before we got there. But when I look at something like this, what else do we take into account when we talk about $100,000 per year, with half of those people indicating they're living paycheck to paycheck? It's the expenses that incurred, some during the pandemic and some during the good years. People looked at this, looked at their rosy outlook, and got themselves into that bigger house. They got themselves into that new car because they were making so much money in 2018, 2019, relative to what their expenditures were at the time. And while their car note, their house note, has stayed the same in this raging inflationary boom, their fuel prices, their food prices, their heating and electric prices have all gone up severely. See, you can go through, and again, you can budget yourself out perfectly and say, yes, I can afford to go buy a $60,000 truck right now. I can make the payments. With the paycheck that I have and the interest rate I can get, I can make the payments on that brand new truck. And it'll be great. It'll be fantastic. It'll be a wonderful time, and I won't have to worry about vehicle repairs for a little while. And then you budget yourself that you spend. And I'm going to go at this at a single person's mindset too. I know that there are differences now that come with having a family, having kids, etc. But on a single person's mindset, yeah, you go out and grab that truck. You've got your new truck. Your rent or your mortgage is covered. And, you're eating good at the time. But now the steak and the meat and the chicken that you've been buying regularly, the $30 you used to go spend at the grocery store every week just to keep yourself fed, is now $50, $60, $90 a week in some cases, depending on what you're eating and how you're eating. It's doubled to tripled what you're spending to go out into the grocery store. Your electric rate per kilowatt hour, that's up 40%. Your heat, that's up 20 to 30% from the time you bought that truck. So you're probably still making the same wage, or maybe even a little bit more, but those wages aren't keeping up with inflation either. And while there are job openings everywhere, it may not be in your particular market. So yes, there are the people out there who are making what many of us thought 4 years ago was a fantastically high wage, who are now looking at this and saying, what do I do? So that is where we are at on personal finance. Let's talk. Well, I've actually got a little bit more finance to go with this. And some more of this talking about where we are at financially versus where the Federal Reserve wants you to believe that you are financially. And I've talked about this a little bit on Twitter as well, posting pictures of various billboards out there. This goes along with another trend that I'm seeing around the country. So we're going to read from Reuters. Biden moves to slash U.S. credit card fees and app charges. First and foremost, no, you don't have a say in this. I mean, yes, the federal government can go back and make a law against private business, but you really don't have a say in this. And again, even with a proposal, you can do it by EO, but it'll fall flat in court. The credit card companies will come back out and sue that out of existence, and it will not pass Supreme Court muster. But also, coming off of this, you have Republicans that will not vote to do this in a House that is Republican controlled right now, which means you're toothless off of this. Yes, you can go move it, you can suggest it, and more power to you. You have no place to talk about it because this is private industry and no teeth to make it happen, except for to go back out and now tell the mainstream media to tell all of its people, the people that follow the mainstream media, oh look, the evil Republicans want you to spend more and give more money to the big credit card companies. From Doug Gillison and David Shepardson. The White House on Wednesday unveiled fresh efforts to slash credit card fees and drive down the prices that Apple and Google parent Alphabet charge on mobile app stores. The move is part of a larger policy drive to promote competition in consumer markets, officials said. Okay, you know how you promote competition in consumer markets? You have some fly-by-night come out there and launch a credit card company that's got a lower overdraft fee or a lower late fee. President Biden was also set to urge Congress to ban hidden junk fees and penalties that federal consumer watchdog says are creeping into everyday retail services across industries, driving up consumer costs, including fees airlines charge for family members to sit next to young children, White House officials said. Biden has been beating the drum on inflation, criticizing Republicans who now control the House for backing tax measures that he said would benefit the wealthy at the expense of middle-class taxpayers. Biden, who's expected to announce a bid for re-election in the coming weeks, has also been slamming Republicans for their refusal to approve an increase in the U.S. debt ceiling unless there's a deal on spending cuts. Wednesday's announcement coincides with a scheduled meeting between Biden and McCarthy that's likely to mark the start of protracted maneuvering on raising the $31.4 trillion borrowing cap. The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau will propose on Wednesday a rule to ban excessive fees that credit card issuers charge for late payments, something the Bureau estimates costs consumers $12 billion a year. When someone misses a credit card payment, even if they pay just a day or two late, or even a few hours, they can be hit with a cascading series of fees. CFPB Director Rohit Chopra told reporters in a Tuesday call. Chopra said such fees are far exceeded by any additional costs that lenders incurred. The White House estimates the rules projected to reduce typical late fees from roughly $30 to $8, saving consumers as much as $9 billion a year. The rule could take effect in 2024 after a comment period, Chopra said. However, regulations are frequently subject to challenge and litigation by industry groups that can block or delay them. All right. That's enough out of here. So we've got the idea. They're trying to reduce your late fees for credit cards. Now, why would you do that? Why would people be so focused on a late fee on a credit card unless, and this is especially important, there's the expectation that sometime in the near future, there are going to be late fees on credit cards that are starting to stack up. You don't go in to a credit card saying, okay, I'm going to go pay this late. You don't go and get a credit card with that expectation. You go in and get the credit card with the expectation that you're going to be able to pay everything or stay at least within the minimum monthly payment, which I do not recommend you do. You should always be paying extra on that. Always on time, or even a little bit early. But this is, by the way, just a growing concern that I see, and a lot of people don't see it. And I've pointed this out on Twitter before. I've pointed this out having discussions about, different banks offering different incentives or fees or everything else. There is an expectation that a lot of people are about to lose their jobs. And I've seen this before. I saw this in 2007 and especially into 2008 and 2009. Most of it the last time happened after the fact, but there were already some inklings of things that were going to happen before we fell into the Great Recession. And that is the expectation that there are going to be overdrafts, that there are going to be late payments on credit cards. I got an advertisement today because one of the things that when I lived down at my last place, with the way that my payments and everything else in my life was scheduled, and back when I was still making a weekly paycheck, my cell phone bill is due on the 20th, but I always paid it the first Friday after the first of the month. Because my truck payment was also due on the 20th, and the rent was due on the 1st, obviously. So the next time I had the proper amount of money, typically, especially since I was, closer to 40 grand at that time, the next time I had the proper amount of money for that was the 1st of the month, every month. Now, my phone company sent me a text message today saying, oh, well, you can qualify for reduced costs, this and that, and the next thing. And it's one of the things that are out there that people are starting to look for. That the cell phone companies don't want you to cut your cell phone, or maybe even go out and get the Spectrum phone or something through your cable company or internet company. They want you to stay with them no matter what the cost. And if they've got to take a little bit of hit on the fee, they're going to take a bit of a hit on the fee. But also banks. I just went up to, what was it? No, this was a while ago. This was over the summer. There was a great big sign, a billboard, over the Red Robin in Janesville that announced that one of the local banks was going to allow you to have your money 3 days before. And this was all the way back this past summer. This was all the way back in the spring, and around the same amount of period of time, I was also talking to my tax accountant on the phone, which meant that this was before April. Oh wow, that was a while ago then, wasn't it? Okay, anyway, with that being said, if they're letting you get your direct deposit 2 to 3 days early, which is nothing more than a loan. No, there will be a recession this time, Grant, because now they can blame Kevin McCarthy for it. Anyway, going back to what I was saying. Yeah, if you're telling people that they can go and get their direct deposit money 2 days before their company deposits their direct deposit, that means that they're anticipating people are going to start running out of money in a hurry. And by the way, that breeds a horrible cycle. And now we've got, banks that are coming out there saying, hey, no overdraft fee, or fly-by-night credit card companies, or national banks. And, these are the trendy ones that, you go and do off your app, that we have no overdraft fee, which is a stupid idea in and of itself. No overdraft fee whatsoever. Go back and draw your account down to negative 10,000 with no consequences. Don't worry about any of that. Which I'm sure that they would stop you before they did that, obviously, but, you get off to that point you were saying. There's an expectation out there that people are going to be down to their last dollar more often than not. It's coming. The bankers know it, the government knows it, the credit card companies know it. And one more thing that I do want to point out with this. I want to talk about the amount. The White House estimates the rule is projected to reduce typical late fees from roughly $30 to $8. What credit card do you have that has a $30 late fee? No, that's a serious question. I have 2 credit cards with Capital One that I got when I still had bad credit. when I still had my identity theft hanging over my head. You know what my late fee is? And I know because I've paid it. Because I've had a couple instances where the one card has always been due on the 3rd. So I've had numerous instances where, and it's at 8 o'clock Eastern time on the 3rd of every month, no matter if it's a Sunday or not. I've had a couple instances where it's been 7:30 Central time on the 3rd, and like, wait, what's today? Today's the 3rd, and gone on the app and paid it. And then in the next cycle, they give me the late fee for it. It's $11. For a credit card that I got when I had a 572 credit score. What credit card are you getting that's got a $30 fee? Or higher, because with my fee being only $11, that means that yours has got, some of those out there have got to be higher to get you down to an average of 30. Get rid of that credit card. I'm telling you that right off the bat. But that's another thing that's coming down the pipe. ABC, what to know about Biden's proposal to slash credit card late fees. From Ella McCarthy, I'd like to know what to know about this. The Biden admin on Wednesday proposed a federal rule to curb excessive credit card late fees and plans to go after Apple and Google App Store for what they say are barriers to competition. The rule, proposed by Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, would reduce typical late fees from monthly $30 to $8, according to projections from the White House. Regarding the app stores, according to the reports from the Department of Commerce's National Telecommunications and Information Admin, consumers largely can't get apps outside the App Store model controlled by Apple and Google. Why are you? Do you not know tech? If you got an Apple, that you're on your own. But you can install pretty much whatever app is out there as long as somebody can make it without using the Play Store on an Android phone. I've got several on my phone that didn't come from the Play Store. The proposals come less than a week before President Biden's State of the Union address on Tuesday, which, by the way, we will be watching that here on Contemporary. And originated from his competition counsel, the credit card fee proposal in particular is part of Biden's push to reduce junk fees. Today's rule proposes a cut to those fees from $31 to on average to $8. Biden said on Wednesday while meeting with the competition counsel. That change is expected to save tens of millions of dollars for Americans. Roughly $9 billion a year in total savings. Why are so many people paying so many late fees? He said over the next few weeks, his team will meet with state and local officials across the U.S. to find ways to crack down on junk fees in their jurisdictions. And is calling on Congress to pass the Junk Fee Prevention Act that would regulate a variety of fees, including entertainment ticket fees and certain airline fees. These unfair fees add up. It's a basic question of fairness. No, it's a basic question of the government interfering in the free market and driving costs up. We're going to keep building an economy that's fair, an economy that's competitive, and an economy that works for everybody. Elizabeth Warren tweeted in support of the proposed rule and said, Congress should follow President Biden's lead and crack down on junk fees on tickets, airfare, internet, hotels, and more. Hiya, 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 hiya. In addition to the limit on credit card late fees, the proposed rule would end the automatic annual inflation adjustment and cap late fees at 25% of the required minimum payment, according to the White House. Is that Biden? No, that's Rohit Chopra. Over a decade ago, Congress banned excessive credit card late fees, but companies have exploited a regulatory loophole that's allowed them to escape scrutiny for charging an otherwise illegal junk fee, said CFPB Director Rohit Chopra. Today's proposed rule seeks to save families billions of dollars and ensure the credit card market is fair and competitive. Okay. If you can't afford a credit card, don't get one. In recent years, late fees have surged to as much as $41 for a missed payment, Chopra said in a statement, with the consumers being hit with $12 billion a year in late fees. In addition to the billions of dollars in interest they're paying. Okay. Let's get the calculator out. Because now I want to know. All right. 41,000 million billion. I'm sorry. We'll assume that every credit card purchase goes on the top fee, the $41 that they're saying. Because that'll give us the lowest number of late payments and missed payments that have to go throughout a year. So 12,000 million billion divided by $41. In order to get to $12 billion a year, that means that Americans need to miss, collectively, among all of us, 292,682,926 payments throughout the year. That is very, very close. That's just a little bit under every American in this country. Man, woman, and child. People who have a credit card, people who don't have a credit card, people who can't afford a credit card. To miss one payment a year. But now that once you get rid of all the kids, and this is, by the way, again, going with assuming that every credit card charges the maximum amount that Rohit Chopra is talking about. If you bring this back down to reasonable numbers, 30, and I would still say that's a reasonable number, or down to 11, that is every single man, woman, and child missing one payment a year. Is what the average comes out to be for that if we start bringing some of this back down. It's no wonder the interest rates are so high. People are spending money and not paying it back. Chopra said the rule could go into effect as soon as 2024, the Associated Press reported. Industry groups, including the American Bankers Association, worry the proposed rule will harm consumers by reducing competition and increasing the cost of credit. Rob Nichols, ABA president and CEO, said in a statement, "Oh yeah, it's going to. If you can't charge a late fee for processing and start to set the wheels in motion for people who may be getting ready to start in a pattern of default because you can't afford to go and do it. Number one, the requirements to get a credit card are going to go up. Number two, the interest rates are going to go up. They will get their money somehow or other. If they can't get it out of fees, for people who are breaking the rules, they're going to pass it along to the good people, the people who are doing everything right. But one way or another, they're going to get their money. The Consumer Bankers Association. I'm sorry, let's keep going here. It will result in more late payments, higher debt, and lower credit scores, and is inconsistent with the Card Act's encouragement of responsible credit management, Nichols said. If the proposal is enacted, credit card issuers will be forced to adjust the new risks by reducing credit lines, tightening standards for new accounts, and raising APRs for all consumers. Wait, didn't I just say that? Including the millions who pay on time. There it is. The Consumer Bankers Association released a similar statement following Wednesday's announcement of the proposed rule. It is deeply unfortunate and puzzling that policymakers would take action that could ultimately limit consumers' access to those valued products at a time when they are needed the most, Lindsay Johnson, the association's president and CEO, said in a statement. Continuing to conflate fees charged by well-regulated banks with those in other industries is not only disingenuous, it fails to reflect the fact that the banks are required by law to provide clear and conspicuous disclosures, which they do. Whether or not that's good for the company or not. I still have, and I haven't called them yet, but I've got a credit card offer that I got at my old place. I have it that says, hey, why don't you come and get our card? And this one came after I fixed my credit. Come and get our card. We'll only charge you a 36.9% interest rate. I saved that just because I want to call them and mock them for that. I want to call them and make fun of them for offering 36.9 to somebody with a 650 credit score. Now, mind you, again, keep in mind that the one card I have from the company that I did get from when I had bad credit, which is a well-known one, I don't want to say the name on air, obviously, because I'm a controversial figure and I don't want them to get boycotted over it. But it's a very well-known company. You guys would know who it is. You might even see Samuel L. Jackson if I mention the name. That's the most I'm going to say about it. With a 553 credit score, I had a 24.9 interest rate on a credit card. So now with a 650, you want me to pay 36.9? Are you out of your mind? Are you stupid? In addition to the admin's push to limit credit card late fees, it also announced a plan to go after large app stores. The National Telecommunications and Information Admin released a report Wednesday stating that the current mobile app stores model is harmful to consumers and developers. Apple and Google create hurdles for developers to compete for consumers by imposing technical limits such as restricting how apps can function or requiring developers to go through slow and opaque review processes, the NTIA says. An Apple spokesperson told ABC News, "We respectfully disagree with a number of conclusions reached in the report, which ignore the investments we make in innovation, privacy, and security, all of which contribute to why users love iPhone and create a level playing field for small developers to compete on a safe and trusted platform." A Google spokesperson said the firm also disagrees with the report, namely how this report characterizes Android, which enables more choice and competition than any other mobile operating system, the Associated Press reported. And yes, it does. And again, you don't necessarily have to go through the Google Play Store to get apps on your phone. And you don't need to be a hacker to do it. So, that's what they're doing. And again, the anticipation is, I'm guessing, they're thinking a lot of people are going to start getting a lot of late fees and, hey, look, we can go buy votes with this. Alright, let's talk about the rate hike from ABC 7 Eyewitness News. It's 7 o'clock. I was worried that we were actually going to have to wind up cutting early, like, at this time, when I saw how few news stories that were out there, and it's 6:54 and we haven't done crap yet today. Now, mind you, again, it's a slow news day, but we've been at this for well, I started a little bit late, but we've been at this for just about an hour and we haven't done crap except for talk about my finances and what the government thinks is going to happen versus what they're telling you. Oh yeah, no, hey, you're going to start incurring a lot of late fees on your credit card, but hey, we just bought your vote by lowering that late fee from $30 to $8. Again, $30, are you serious? Get a different credit card if your late payment is $30. Don't make the government do it for you. Cut the one up that's got a $30 late fee. Cut it up and get rid of it. The Federal Reserve said Wednesday it was raising its short-term borrowing rate another 0.25%, the central bank's second consecutive decision to lower rate increases while extending an effort to cool the economy and dial back inflation. The Fed has put a string of borrowing cost increases as it tries to slash price hikes by slowing the economy and choking off demand. Again, the big thing is getting you out of the markets and letting the government stay in them. This approach, however, risks tripping the U.S. economy into a recession and putting millions out of work. The Fed's decision comes weeks after a government report showed that inflation slowed in December, marking 6 consecutive months of easing price increases. At a press conference on Wednesday, Jerome Powell vowed to continue the fight against inflation while acknowledging that inflation has eased in recent months. He said that inflation remained too high and interest rates will need to stay elevated to bring inflation down to normal levels. Without price stability, the economy doesn't work for anyone, Powell said. We will need substantially more evidence to be confident inflation is on a sustained downward path. It's not. It's still going up. At what point is 5% inflation a downward path? We will stay the course until the job is done, he added. In a statement, Federal Reserve said it remains highly attentive to inflation risks, adding that the benchmark interest rate would require ongoing increases to bring inflation down to normal levels. In a meeting in December, the Fed raised its short-term borrowing rate a half percentage point, pulling back from 3 consecutive three-quarter increases, signaling confidence that sky-high inflation could be brought down to normal levels. The Fed matched the economists' expectations with the 0.25% rate hike on Wednesday. Consumer prices rose 6.5% over the year-long period ending in December, which amounts to a significant slowdown from a summer peak, but remains more than triple the Fed's target inflation rate of 2%. That's not going down. This is ridiculous. These people, inflation is going down, it's going down. No, it's compounding. The Fed is still strongly committed to returning inflation to its 2% objective, the central bank said in a statement on Wednesday. Cooling inflation has spurred optimism the U.S. economy may avert a recession. See, this is the kind of talk that makes me buckle down and start canning more stuff. The central bank said in a statement on Wednesday. Cooling inflation spurred optimism that the U.S. economy may avert a recession. In a report on Monday, the Internal Monetary Fund projected the U.S. economic growth would slow this year, but the U.S. could still avoid a downturn. Further government data last week showed the U.S. economy grew robustly at the end of last year, defying concerns about an imminent recession. Still, most economists expect a recession later this year as interest rate hikes weigh on the economy, according to a survey released by Bloomberg last week. Forecasters expect gross domestic product to fall over the second and third quarters of this year, the survey found. Growing evidence suggests the Fed's rate hikes have put the brakes on some economic activity. Yeah, like people who took some of the pandemic money, fixed their credit, wanting to go buy their first house. Home sales fell for the 11th consecutive month of December, reaching their lowest rate since November 2010, according to the National Association of Realtors. Meanwhile, U.S. retail sales fell in December, ending the typically busy holiday shopping season with a whimper. Year-over-year retail sales dropped by about 1% last month, extending a nearly identical fall in November. So far, however, the labor market has proven resilient, buoying the hopes of policymakers seeking to cool prices without causing significant job losses. Well, good luck. I think we're kind of screwed personally, but, good luck. Let's see, from CNN. Just briefly on the headline, then we're going to actually listen to Powell. Fed approves smallest rate hike since March in nod to improved inflation outlook. From Nicole Goodkind. And I wanted to sneak the headline in here because, again, they're pointing this back out here and saying, oh yeah, the smallest rate hike in March. The smallest since March. The inflation is great. It's only 5% this time, 6%, whatever the hell it is. Which we'll find out more of that on Friday. But let's listen to Fed Chair Jerome Powell.
Today, the FOMC raised our policy interest rate by 75 basis points, and we continue to anticipate that ongoing increases will be appropriate. We are moving our policy stance purposefully to a level that will be sufficiently restrictive to return inflation to 2%. In addition, we're continuing the process of significantly reducing the size of our balance sheet. Restoring price stability will likely require maintaining a restrictive stance of policy for some time. At some point, as I've said in the last two press conferences, it will become appropriate to slow the pace of increases as we approach the level of interest rates that will be sufficiently restrictive to bring inflation down to our 2% goal. There is significant uncertainty around that level of interest rates. Even so, we still have some ways to go, and incoming data since our last meeting suggests that the ultimate level of interest rates will be higher than previously expected. Our decisions will depend on the totality of incoming data and their implications for the outlook for economic activity and inflation. We will continue to make our decisions meeting by meeting and communicate our thinking as clearly as possible. We're taking forceful steps to moderate demand so that it comes into better alignment with supply. Our overarching focus is using our tools to bring inflation back down to our 2% goal and to keep longer-term inflation expectations well anchored. Reducing inflation is likely to require a sustained period of below-trend growth and some softening of labor market conditions. Restoring price stability is essential to set the stage for achieving maximum employment and stable prices in the longer run. The historical record cautions strongly against prematurely loosening policy. We will stay the course until the job is done. And that's why I've said at the last two press conferences that at some point it will become appropriate to slow the pace of increases. So that time is coming, and it may come as soon as the next meeting or the one after that. No decision has been made. It is likely we'll have a discussion about this at the next meeting, a discussion. To be clear, let me say again, the question of when to moderate the pace of increases is now much less important than the question of how high to raise rates and how long to keep monetary policy restrictive, which really will be our principal focus.
Air travel is stressed by weather and technical...
Okay, enough out of you. I want to touch on a couple things that he said there because, again, and he's pointing out the fact that we don't know where the point is where we need to top this back out at. We just need to keep adding more to this until we get to the point. There comes a point. And I've talked about this with the price inflation too, the price of bread, the price of chips, the price of salsa, the price of meat, etc. There does come a point where people won't buy it anymore. Where people will look at this and say, screw it, I'll go without. I'll buy hot dogs and mac and cheese instead of paying those prices for this product. And we're seeing it with the finished goods. The TVs, the skateboards, the toys, etc. We're seeing some of it with that, where the prices are rising to a point that it's not worth it anymore to go back out and pay that kind of money. And it's the same thing with the interest rate. Now again, they're saying, oh, we're slowing it down, we're slowing the rate increases, we're only going up by a quarter point. But you've come to a point where it's already getting... People are already looking at this, and unless there is a major dire strait out there that they need to get out of the market that they're in, sell the house, or move somewhere else across the country, people are just looking at this and saying, it's not worth it anymore. It is not worth it for me to go out and spend this kind of money on a mortgage, on a car loan, on a credit card. So is it that you're really interested in slowing this down because you think inflation is under control? Or you come to a point where you're realizing that, okay, well, most people are looking at this and saying it's not worth it. Which I do understand was the point of hiking the rate hikes to begin with, but they're going to keep trying to spin this and make it look like they know what they're doing. They don't have a clue. And even more evidence that these people really think that everything's under control. Reading from GAL8, WGAL8, How to Save Money Amid Federal Reserve Rate Hikes. From Jocelyn Howard. The Federal Reserve has once again raised the key interest rate, and officials warn the Fed isn't likely to back off rate hikes anytime soon. Goods are pricier than ever, and the Federal Reserve tries to reel in those rising prices by rising interest rates. It helps to reduce the level of demand, which in turn often reduces the pressure of causing prices to rise. We're in uncertain economic times, there's no doubt about that, says Mike Wilson. Wilson suggests that if you have multiple loans with high interest rates, it may be worth looking into debt consolidation. That you got to be careful with, because a lot of the times you took out the multiple loans on higher interest rates, and then all of a sudden now, the interest rate is higher because you took those loans out while the prime rate was low. At times you could save money by consolidating all those together and fixing your rate and your term, Wilson said. Also, if you need a loan and own a home, you may be able to get a home equity line of credit. But again, you got to be careful with that because, you took your house loan out when the rates were at the bottom and were at 3%. You took your mortgage out then. Now your second mortgage, your home equity line of credit, is at 9%. It's not worth it. However, high interest rates aren't all bad. You can use the higher rates to your advantage. Certificates right now are offering a very high rate of return, Wilson said. A CD is a savings account that holds a fixed amount of money for a fixed period of time, and in exchange, the bank pays you interest. Yeah, the difference between like a savings account and a CD is the fact that, like they said, it's a fixed amount. You can't touch that at all without massive penalties. So they're willing to pay you more for that because they're going to turn around and lend that back out. This is a fantastic time to really think about how to build up your savings or a rainy day fund and make sure you're prepared in the event that you need to be, Wilson said. Dealing with interest rates can be stressful and complicated, but instead of dealing with it alone, you can often consult with a bank or credit union for free about the best borrowing option for you. Wow, none of this is anything to do with saving. I didn't pre-read this, but I'm going to tell you right now, none of this has anything to do. In fact, this almost seems like this is propaganda from the bank to tell you to come back out and spend more money, borrow more money, come back in, take advantage of our slightly higher, low interest rates. You want to know how you save money in times like these? Buy base ingredients, learn how to cook, learn how to process, and learn how to can. And the more basic you can get your ingredient, the more money you can typically save. Check for used before you go buy something new. Trust me, I've been doing this for... God, how long have I been at this now? How long have I been poor? These bankers who want you to go back and borrow money, they don't have your best interests at heart, and they don't have any idea how to save money in a recession and high interest rate hikes like this. I've been doing this since I was 25. So I've been doing this for 13 years. The more base your ingredient is, the less it's going to cost. You may have to put a bigger upfront cost up at first, but that'll last you for much longer. Shop around. Look for places that typically hold things at a higher discount. I only buy eggs, by the way, at Quick Trip, and I only buy milk when I do drink milk at Quick Trip. I don't buy it at the grocery store because it's typically 25 to 30% more at the grocery store than it is, and there's a Quick Trip on every corner. There's some meats that I don't buy at the grocery store anymore because they're 25% lower at the Quick Trip. So look in your area to see what places typically hold things lower. I normally shop at Woodman's because it's got the lowest price on finished and dry goods. But I won't buy meat there because their meat's always 25% more. I'll buy my meat at Festival. Not go out and try to consolidate your high interest loans into a higher interest loan. This is ridiculous. From CNN. Alright, we got a little bit more on the debt ceiling. McCarthy hopeful after first meeting with Biden on debt limit. I think that at the end of the day, we can find common ground, from Megan Vasquez and Claire Ferran. Kevin McCarthy did not walk away from his highly anticipated White House meeting on Wednesday with an agreement in hand to address the debt limit, but signaled optimism that both he and the president can reach a consensus long before the U.S. reaches default. McCarthy said the president exchanged political jabs ahead of the meeting, preempting their negotiations with red lines relayed to the press and on social media. But emerging from the West Wing on Wednesday, the new House Speaker had an unexpectedly hopeful tone as he underscored that he believes that they can come to an agreement. The U.S. hit its debt ceiling in January, forcing the Treasury Department to start taking extraordinary measures. We know that. The White House and the new House GOP majority have been at odds with how to resolve a way to raise the debt limit, and while McCarthy called it a good first meeting, he also noted that they still have different perspectives on this. I think at the end of the day we can find common ground, he added. McCarthy said he told Biden he would like to come to an agreement long before the deadline, and we can start working on other things. And a statement from the White House said that Biden underscored that he's eager to continue working across the aisle in good faith and continue conversations with the Speaker. In the meeting, the White House statement said the president made clear to McCarthy that it is a shared duty not to allow a default on the nation's debt. Following what was his first White House meeting since he won the speakership, McCarthy said he believes that a funding agreement could be reached for the next 2 years and that you won't see omnibuses anymore. That would be nice. You'll see the Senate and the House actually do what the American public has elected them to do, he added. The White House has also said Biden welcomes a separate discussion with congressional leaders about how to reduce the deficit and control the national debt while continuing to grow the economy. House Republicans have said that lifting the borrowing cap must be tied to spending reductions, and the White House had previously countered that it will not offer concessions or negotiate on raising the debt ceiling. Republicans face political risk if they push to cut spending. If they propose cuts to popular government programs and services, they could face a public backlash. Yes, of course, CNN has to sneak into, but my Medicare and my Social Security. McCarthy said he informed Biden the House would not pass a clean debt ceiling with no strings attached, rejecting the chief demand from the White House. Asked what he offered Biden, McCarthy said, "The only thing I heard for the last month was, I'm not going to negotiate with you. I just spent an hour sitting with the president in the Oval Office talking about what we can do on a debt ceiling. So the first start is, okay, that's different than what the last month was. And that's important." Now, a few things to pay attention to with this. Number one, Biden has backed down, apparently, according to what McCarthy said. We have not heard a statement from the White House and the West Wing on the contents of this, but we've only heard one side of this. But if this is true, then yeah, we actually could be in a position to do something. But also we need to keep in mind that President Biden is going to go back to his handlers, who are probably going to come back out and tell him that no, he's not going to negotiate. And that he's, like the American people are going to come out and say he's evil for negotiating with McCarthy. Biden is not in control of any of these negotiations. But I do think that somebody along the way did inform him that what he has been saying is political suicide. He can't just keep coming out and saying, "I will not negotiate with anything. Just no negotiations whatsoever. That's holding things hostage." Whereas the McCarthy position and the Republican position is, okay, we want to fix this, but you got to do something for us too. We will give you what you want, but you got to do something for us. So, no word on any of that. I'm still blackpilled on the whole thing. But as a failsafe and a backup plan, from the Hill, House Dems I discharge petition as escape hatch on debt ceiling. We did talk about this yesterday. From Mike Lillis. As the debt ceiling fight heats up on Capitol Hill, House Democrats are eyeing an on-the-round strategy to bypass McCarthy and the conservative hawks driving his agenda to avoid a federal default later this year. Democrat leaders have already begun talks about tapping a procedural tool known as a discharge petition to force a debt limit hike to the floor without accompanying cuts McCarthy is demanding, according to sources familiar with the closed-door discussions. That would align House Democrats with President Biden, who is insisting on a clean debt ceiling increase, absent any other budget changes. Well, that may have changed at this point. Yeah, we talked about this yesterday, and there is the procedural hurdle that goes with that, but also the ability for them to bring this back down to the floor. And the question is going to be, will they be able to get enough Republicans on board, some of whom will not be able to go home if they sign on to this? But we will continue to watch this and see what's happening there. We've got one more here, a video from CNN. I'm asking the questions. Jim Sciutto pushes back on GOP lawmaker over the debt ceiling. So let's listen. Have not pre-listened. I don't know what's about to happen here. But let's see what these two have to say with each other. This is Dusty Johnson of South Dakota.
The debt ceiling relates to budgets already passed by Congresses, including with Republican votes. What are the positions? Because a negotiation, as you know, involves, if you want to call it that, involves two sides presenting their positions. Can you name a single program that Republicans would be willing to cut money from to make a deal?
But see, I think that's ridiculously unfair, and here's why. The credit card bill comes to our family. We have maxed out our credit cards. Now, of course, listen, we're going to pay that credit card bill. We're legally obligated to do so. But rather than force all of the onus on the Republicans, which I know y'all love to do, what a responsible, reasonable, and sensible family would do is sit down together and start
by the way,
to talk
I'm
through
not doing that,
how
sir.
do we stop.
I'm not putting all the onus on Republicans. That's the law. The law puts the onus on Congress and the nation to pay its bill. But please go ahead. Is there a program that you can name that you personally would be willing to see money cut from?
Well, yeah, there are lots of programs. But the point is, I'm not going to negotiate against the Republican Party on CNN. The only thing that we're asking for today is for President Biden to be responsible, sensible, and reasonable, and being willing to come to the table and negotiate. You know, it's remarkable. MJ, your reporter, she's great. She highlighted how President Biden's spending his time taking jabs at Kevin McCarthy. How is Kevin McCarthy spending his time today? He's getting together with his Republican team to talk about how do we try to bend these curves away from $32 trillion in debt.
Our Manu Raju is reporting that defense budget cuts are also on the table. Can you name a defense weapons system or program that you'd be willing to cut money from?
If we honestly think that out of $800 or $900 billion in defense spending a year, that there isn't anything that can be cut, I would just tell you, I think we got to be willing to roll up our sleeves. But I get what your goal is here today. Your goal is to try to get Republicans to negotiate against themselves and to try to identify programs.
My goal is to find out what your positions are. When you're going into a budget negotiation, presumably you have some programs in mind that you'd be willing to cut. So I'm asking the questions. Can you name a defense program you'd be willing to cut from?
Step one is to actually have the President of the United States be willing to have this negotiation. I mean, why in the world would Republicans, when the president has the statutory obligation to bring his budget forward first, why would we bring forth all of these admittedly difficult to discuss cuts? Let the president off the hook. He has shown a total unwillingness to be the leader of the free world and engaging in these conversations.
The debt ceiling is about budgets already passed. And I should note that when Republican presidents were in office, George W. Bush and Trump, Democrats did not push the country to the brink. And by the way, Republicans did not push their own Republican president to the brink on the debt ceiling, although I should note for our viewers, you voted against raising the debt ceiling yourself, but the Republican leadership did not. Why that difference? Why push this president but not Trump?
I love this revisionist history. Here are the facts for your viewers. After 8 years of Republican control in the House, discretionary spending was lower at the end of that 8 years than it was at the beginning. So why didn't Republicans go to the brink? It was because they had Republican presidents who were willing to work with them on some of these much needed spending cuts, rather than a Joe Biden who says he refuses to negotiate. Listen, if we're really going to get this done, it's not about CNN or Joe Biden putting all of the onus on Republicans to identify cuts. It will be two responsible men who should be the President of the United States and the Speaker of the House sitting down to begin the negotiations, rather than the onus all being on one party.
The College Board.
So there were actually a lot of good points that this was made, and I'm a little bit disappointed actually in what Jim Sciutto was doing and saying with this.
The debt ceiling relates to
All right, shut up. We listened to you already. But what Jim Sciutto rather was saying with Dusty Johnson, and this was like Jim Sciutto coming back out to try to own, and I do think Dusty was right in this when he said that yes, what seems to be happening is that Jim is coming out to try to get Republicans to negotiate against themselves right now, rather than negotiating against the Democrats, which is what they need to be doing. And there is always going to be the question. Your CNNs, your MSDNCs of the world, they want everyone to believe that the only thing that's on the table is Social Security and Medicare, because they've been beating that war drum for, I don't know, my whole life, almost 40 years. Oh, every Republican wants to just come in and cut your Social Security and Medicare. Well, I'd like to, yes, but I know that it's a foregone conclusion. It's not going to happen. We're not going to see an end to Social Security until it runs out of money, which is going to happen within my lifetime, within my working life. I think that Dusty Johnson handled this a little bit well. He did take a couple of underhanded jabs and just said, oh, my evil CNN, but I mean, let's not forget the fact that he voluntarily went on the network as well. And Sciutto got a couple of good jabs in too, but he was losing control of the conversation and taking a couple cheap shots to try to get control back into it as well. So that's where we're at on the debt ceiling. And oh, by the way, we're done with finance now. Let's talk documents from the Associated Press. FBI searches Biden's vacation home, no classified documents found. From Eric Tucker, Colleen Long, and Zeke Miller. The FBI searched President Biden's vacation home in Rehoboth Beach on Wednesday without turning up any classified documents, the latest turn in an extraordinary series of searches of his and his predecessor's properties. Agents did take some handwritten notes and other materials relating to Biden's time as vice president for review, just as they had when they searched his Wilmington home last month, where they found classified items. Investigators searched his former office at Washington think tank that bears his name in November, but it isn't clear whether they took anything. The Biden searches conducted with his blessings have come as investigators work to determine how classified information from his time as Senate and Vice President came to wind up in his home and former office, and whether any mishandling involved criminal intent or was merely a mistake, in a city where unauthorized treatment of classified documents is not unheard of. Law enforcement searches of property are a routine part of criminal probes, but there's nothing ordinary about the FBI scouring a sitting president's home, even as Biden and his aides have sought to contrast his actions with those of his predecessor. Former President Trump is facing a special counsel criminal investigation into his retention of several hundred classified documents and other government records at his Mar-a-Lago estate in Florida, and his resistance to giving them up, which led to an FBI warrant and nighttime search to seize them last August. Fake news, that was actually in the middle of the day. It seemed like a nighttime seizure because he was in New York at the time. On Wednesday, Bob Bauer said FBI agents authorized by the DOJ spent 3.5 hours searching the president's beach home and that no documents with classified markings were found. Congratulations. I question whether or not there was anything realistic about this investigation, this part of the investigation rather. Because, yeah, I mean, that's what you should be doing. There shouldn't be the expectation that you're going into these homes and finding classified documents. And honestly, this kind of just seems more like a show than anything else. Like, oh, hey, look, here's a property that didn't have any classified documents in it. Hey, look, Trump. But, you know, again, this goes with the Pence story too, because I will remind you that the two outlets gave two different versions of what happened at the Pence home, with one saying that Pence's lawyer said, hey, these handwritten notes and other documents you have here, they are not marked classified, but the content of them should probably be classified, so let's go tell the National Archives about this. Whereas other outlets were saying that there was definitely something with classified markings there. And I don't know what the actual honest truth is on that. And again, we're also seeing off this instance, there were nothing that was marked classified, but there were things that needed to be brought back to the National Archives for review to see if they needed to be classified or not. And those are two very different things, by the way. Some more CNN stuff here from The Blaze. Top Biden official unable to spin her way out of a contradiction, exposed by CNN host on a classified document scandal. From Chris Enlow. CNN anchor Victor Blackwell confronted Biden admin official on Tuesday over the glaring lack of transparency from the Biden admin on President Biden's classified document scandal. On Tuesday, CBS reported the FBI conducted a search of Biden's private Washington office after his personal attorney made the initial discovery of classified documents on November 2nd. It's not clear why Biden's attorneys, the White House, or the DOJ previously refused to disclose the search. And the official here is Kate Bedingfield, the comms director. Claimed the White House has been transparent from the onset. Blackwell had just one question. How can you be transparent if you aren't forthcoming with the basic details, especially with the investigation going on with Trump at the time? You waited 2 months to do this, but let's listen.
Sure, Kate, you're claiming transparency, but I'm bringing this to you. You aren't bringing it to me. This happened in mid-November. If you are indeed being transparent, why the continued trickle of disclosure around these classified documents?
We have released multiple statements from the White House, and President Biden's personal attorney has released multiple statements over the last month, walking through the process and agreeing to be fully cooperative with the Justice Department. This is a process that plays out. We are responsive to the Justice Department's requests. We have been clear from the outset that the president will cooperate with every request the Justice Department has, and we put out multiple statements.
Yeah, but again, you waited 2 months to tell the world about it, knowing full well that it was there, and I'm guessing probably knowing full well that it was going to be released. Here's the thing, I don't believe you. Alright, what else do we have? Oh yes, Nikki Haley. Nikki Haley stuff. Are you ready for Nikki Haley stuff? Are you ready for me to cry a little bit? It's official. Nikki Haley is running for president. Formal announcement February 15th. From Skylar Kropf. Commenting on what's been in the works for months, former South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley will formally announce she is running for president and will seek the Republican nomination for her party's 2024 ticket, the Post and Courier has learned. According to an invitation soon going out to her backers, Haley's advertised special announcement will come February 15th at the Shed in the Charleston Visitor Center, a downtown gathering spot that could draw hundreds of supporters to the heart of the city's tourism district. The confirmation she is entering the race came January 31st from a member of Haley's inner circle. Haley has teased at running for the White House for months, increasing her footprint on social media and in national interviews that she was leaning towards an official bid. Long identified as harboring presidential intentions for the past decade, she becomes the second announced profile Republican looking to knock off Democrat President Joe Biden next year, just behind her former boss from when she was UN ambassador, previous White House occupant Donald Trump. Haley famously said she would not seek a challenge to Trump if he ran again, but her message has since shifted to say the country needs to look forward at a different path. Okay, that's fair. We need to look forward at a different path. That's how we got Trump in the first place, by the way. We needed to look forward in a different path. Now, here's my question. If you are the same kind of warmongering, neoconservative, Republican, Bushite, Romneyite, Ronna McDanielite, that we've had for 40 years in this country, how is that a different path? That's a serious question too, by the way. How is it a different path if we're going back and doing the exact same thing we've always been doing? Because it doesn't seem like a different path to me. It seems like we're just going through and doing the same old crap again. The genitalia is different. But I can take your platform and have Mitt Romney read it, and it will be 98 to 100% the same as Mitt Romney's 2012 platform. It's time for a new generation, she telegraphed on Twitter in recent days. It's time for new leadership, and it's time to take our country back. America is worth the fight, and we're just getting started. During an interview on Fox with Bret Baier, Haley signaled her clearest indication yet that she was readying a White House bid. When you're looking at a run for president, you look at two things. You first look at, does the current situation push for new leadership? The second question is, am I that person that could be the new leader? Answering those two questions, Haley said yes. We need to go in a new direction, and can I be that leader? Yes, I think I can be that leader. Haley does not have far to travel for her announcement. She has been a Charleston County resident and registered voter since leaving her UN ambassador post in 2018, living with her family on Kiowa Island. Alright, let's talk about this. Now, Nikki Haley is an absolutely not for me. Nikki Haley is I will say stay home if she's the nominee. Because I sure as hell won't vote for anybody on the Democrat side of the ticket. And no, absolutely 100% not. And I'm not a Republican, by the way. Just a reminder to everybody, especially my adversaries on Twitter, who like to come back out and hold that label above me. I am not a Republican. I briefly called myself that in the late aughts, after Barack Obama came on the scene, and I realized just how far left the Democrat platform was going. You know, and again, I remind you that even though Barack Obama governed as a neoliberal, just another Clinton, just another Gore, just another Carter, just another Biden. He was just another one of these machine politic people. He got to where he needed to be, edging out Hillary Clinton, by running his primary to as pretty much far left as you could get away with at the time. And also, and I remind you, paving the way for Bernie Sanders to get in. Because Barack Obama's platform, while less radical than Sanders, made Sanders seem at least attainable. At least in the same realm as the rest of us. Whether that's true or not. Yes, he won the presidency partially because of the color of his skin, and partially because he tempered himself back down to appeal to the union vote Democrats. My dad had a hope and change magnet on the fridge for almost the entire Obama presidency. But he couldn't get to that top spot. He couldn't reach that top spot without going as far to the left as he could. Now, and with that being said, we look into something like this. And I actually differ with Sticks a little bit on this one. I always hear Sticks say that, nobody's got a chance. Nobody should even try to get in and run against Trump. Trump should just go unopposed. Trump should do this. Trump should do that. And I don't like that kind of language. I really don't. I actually, as much as I wouldn't vote for Nikki Haley as president, I encourage her to get in. And Ted Cruz. And Mike Pence. And yes, even the War Walrus, who the Post and Courier won't bring him up, but he is definitely officially running. Let them all get in. Let's have another 20 to 30 person primary. What did they get? 26 for the Democrat primary? Let's have 30 Republican for the primary. Yeah, DeSantis, roll yourself in there. Announce. I know a lot of these people said that they wouldn't ever run against Trump no matter what. And I understand that and I respect that. And it is almost political suicide to run against him because while his brand has been toxicified to the centrists, he can pull out all the weaknesses of people like Scott Walker and Nikki Haley. He can pull their weaknesses out and get them to say stupid things that disqualify them from the running. That is one thing that Trump is very good at. But the reason I say get them all out, get like 30 people in there and run, is because it does. I don't believe in any politician running unopposed. I hate the fact that local seats around here tend to have that happen with them, where some of them run completely unopposed. I hate that. I detest that. I despise that. Let as many people get up onto that stage as possible and hold Donald accountable. I still think that he's going to be the nominee, but let's hold him accountable. Let's make sure that he can stand behind his ideas and defend them. Or at least draw the weakness out of the rest of these people. So, well, good luck, Nikki Haley. You're going to need it. And I will not vote for you. Let's talk about Tyree Nichols from the Daily Wire. Daniel Chayton reporting Kamala Harris calls on Congress to pass policing reform at Tyree Nichols' funeral. I believe, yes, I do have video of this. And then we've got also the good Reverend Al Sharpton. Kamala Harris, speaking at the funeral of a Memphis man allegedly killed by police, urged Congress on Wednesday to pass sweeping police reforms. No, let's do it at a local level. Harris issued the call as she delivered remarks at a service for Tyree Nichols, a black man who video allegedly shows was brutally beaten to death by police officers in the Tennessee city last month. 5 black officers were fired and subsequently charged with second-degree murder. Harris spoke in favor of the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act, which passed the House in March of 2021, but failed to clear the Senate. Let's listen.
So when we talk about public safety, let us understand what it means in its truest form. Tyree Nichols should have been safe. So I'll just close by saying this. I was, as a senator, as a United States Senator, a co-author of the original George Floyd Justice and Policing Act. And as Vice President of the United States, we demand that Congress pass the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act. Joe Biden will sign it. And we should not delay, and we will not be denied. It is non-negotiable.
Yes, pass the sweeping reforms that allow for federal takeover of local police. Because we hit other language in there like ban the chokehold. Let's listen to the other clip here.
Mothers around the world, when their babies are born, pray to God when they hold that child that that body and that life will be safe for the rest of his life. Yet we have a mother and a father who mourn the life of a young man who should be here today. They have a grandson who now does not have a father. His brothers and sister will lose the love of growing old with their baby brother. And when we look at this situation, this is a family that lost their son and their brother through an act of violence at the hands and the feet of people who had been charged with keeping them safe. And when I think about the courage and the strength of this family, I think it demands that we speak truth. And with this, I will say, this violent act was not in pursuit of public safety. It was not in the interest of keeping the public safe, because one must ask, was not it in the interest of keeping the public safe that Tyree Nichols would be with us here today?
How many times can you say, and keep the public safe?
Was he not also entitled to the right to be safe? So when we talk about public safety, let us understand what it means in its truest form.
Well, we can keep people safe without making a federal crackdown and takeover of policing. But see, these people don't understand that. These 5 officers were relieved from duty, with the 6th one also relieved from duty, and the 5 of them automatically arrested for second-degree murder. We in localities can hold our own police and our public officials accountable. And that's something that these DC types don't understand. But a big part of that is because they've convinced their fans that your local yokels can't be trusted, and you can only be trusted if it's coming from the federal government. Which is disgusting, by the way. But Sharpton, not able to let Harris get the last word, also got in on this. Let's listen to Al Sharpton. I said, let's listen to Al Sharpton.
Is so personal to me is that 5 black men that wouldn't have had a job in the police department.
Wait. Is Al Sharpton seriously suggesting that what happened to Tyree Nichols is the fault of the white man for hiring the black men? Are you serious right now? Wow. Full on clown world.
Would not ever be thought of to be in an elite squad. In the city that Dr. King lost his life, not far away from that balcony, you beat a brother to death. There's nothing more insulting and offensive to those of us that fight to open doors, that you walk through those doors and act like the folks we had to fight for to get you through them doors. didn't get on the police department by yourself. The police chief didn't get there by herself. People had to march and go to jail, and some lost their lives to open the doors for you. And how dare you act like that sacrifice was enough for nothing? You ain't in no New England state, you in Tennessee, where we had to fight for you. And you take that position?
Mothers around the world.
All right, shut up. We don't want to listen to you again. I am just blown away by the fact that Al Sharpton can turn around and make 5 black men beating a black man to death into a white supremacist thing. I can't even. I'll be so glad when this story falls out of the news cycle. If they're still talking about this stuff tomorrow, I don't know if I'm going to cover it. The only reason that I still am interested in it, because as I said yesterday, there's something else in this. There's something here that they're not telling us. I don't know what it is, but there is a major missing portion of this story. All right. This one coming from the Real Off Hours Discord server. Posting this out, Clay Travis saying, lots of athletes are finally catching on that left-wing sports media asks them political questions, so left-wing sports media members can write their own left-wing political opinions. Here's Azarenka calling that out. Excuse me.
I don't know what you guys want us to do about it. Like, talk about it. I don't know what's the goal here. That is continuously brought up, and these incidents that, in my opinion, have nothing to do with players, but somehow you keep dragging players into it. So, what's the goal here? I think you should ask yourself that question, not me.
Just to clarify on that though, does it frustrate you that, particularly last night, for example, there was a clear sort of pro-Russian demonstration happening within the grounds of the tournament, that these people are coming and using the Australian Open as a platform for these kind of demonstrations? Does that frustrate you?
Whatever the answer I'm going to give it to you right now, it's going to be turned whichever way you want to turn it to. So, does it bother me? What bothers me is there's real things that's going on in the world. And I don't know, are you a politician? Are you? Are you covering politics?
No, I'm a sports journalist.
Yes, and I'm an athlete. And you're asking me about things that maybe somebody says are in my control, but I don't believe that. So I don't know what you want me to answer. And if it's a provocative question, then you can spin the story however you want.
Based. So I know a lot of people got upset over people telling LeBron and Jordan and various others in the past to not weigh in on some of these things and shut up and dribble. Here is a Belarusian tennis player who is legitimately shutting up and dribbling. Who's literally coming out and saying, I know you want to ask me about questions about Russia staging demonstration at Australia Open. I know you are trying to ask me these questions, but I am not a politician. This does not affect me. I come up and play sports. I hit a little yellow ball with the racket. That is so based. And it does not matter how I answer a question. You will spin it however you want it. That is amazing. I know I'm probably a pro-Russia Putin stooge for saying that now, but that is actually kind of incredible. I kind of wish I'd have saved this for tomorrow night so I could put this on things that I like. I might still do that just for the hell of it. Whoops, that landed over in the things I like and things that I hate segment for tomorrow. How could that happen? Alright, let's see. One more. And then we will talk about something I'm thankful for and head out of here for the day. From Fox News, Illinois loses appeal over gun control law, leaving a restraining order in effect. From Adam Sabes. The state of Illinois. And when I say that, I mean the Democratic People's Republic of Illinois. Lost an appeal on Tuesday after a lower court judge issued a restraining order on a newly enacted ban on some semi-automatic rifles as well as high-capacity magazines. J.B. Pritzker signed the gun control law on January 10th, which bans the sale and distribution of assault weapons and high-capacity magazines, and switches which went into effect immediately after he approved it. Effingham County Judge Joshua Morrison issued a temporary restraining order against the law on January 24th, preventing it from being enforced. Morrison's ruling came in response to a lawsuit from 4 gun merchants and 850 individuals who argued the law was enacted improperly and didn't have the proper public input, adding that the law violated the state and U.S. Constitution's Equal Protection Clause in providing exemptions for some groups of people based on their occupation or training. For example, people who are active or retired law enforcement are excluded from the ban. Morrison said his ruling that the plaintiffs are being immediately and irreparably harmed each day in which their fundamental right to bear arms is being denied. After an appeal from Illinois AG Kwame Raoul, Illinois' 5th District Appellate Court ruled on Tuesday 2-1 that the temporary restraining order can stay in place and also extends it statewide. Based! Previously, the temporary restraining order only applied to the plaintiffs. Based! The ruling states the plaintiff had a likelihood of success in its merits in regards to their argument that the law violates the state and U.S. Constitution's Equal Protection Clause. Illinois is also facing several other lawsuits challenging the law, including one from the NRA, which means that this was something that the NRA actually felt that they needed to get up and do something about. They needed to get off their asses and do something. Jason Ouimet, Executive Director at the NRA Institute for Legislative Action, the guy who decides what to take up and what not to take up, told Fox News that the law is unconstitutional, which it very much is. The NRA will not stand by while activist politicians pass unconstitutional laws that do nothing to promote public safety. Why not? You do it all the time. You do it constantly. That's why I advocate for gun owners of America, not the NRA. We sued the state of Illinois because this new law is a blatant violation of American Second Amendment rights, Ouimet said. So, if you are in Illinois, number 1, get out of there. And number 2, you've got some reprieve temporarily. Alright, we're done. No more news. But we always finish out on Wednesday talking about something that restores my faith in humanity, something I'm thankful for. There's a lot to be thankful for out there, folks. There's a ton to be. Now, obviously, there are some things going on here that you guys don't know. Some of you do, but some things that you guys don't know. But I will say this, that I will try not to get into my personal life very much here. My professional, my labor life is a little bit of a different story, but I know that there are some weird stalkers out there, and there are some people out there that I don't want to be stalked by someone who believes that I vote the wrong way on abortion. So with that being said, there are some details that will never be put in this, but I will say that there's some things on that front that there's thankfulness to be had about. But I want to talk about what we went back to on the finance. Where we were before. We talked about Americans living paycheck to paycheck under Biden's America. And I talked about the fact that I'm not anymore, although I was in a temporary position where I was. Now, I looked at this, and I had a long, hard thought about my finances this week. I went from a weekly paycheck to a bi-weekly paycheck. And it was hard. What was even harder about it is the fact that because of timing, I had to pay for my old place for 2 more months beyond when I lived there. I moved out right after Thanksgiving, but I still had to pay for December and January. Which means that every paycheck that I have had, with the exception of the one that's coming up tomorrow, has had at least a rent payment coming out of it, which means that just about an entire week's wages have gone out of every paycheck that I've had. But I realized something. I haven't really curbed my spending that much. In fact, my grocery bill has tripled since I moved, and some of that is new location. Some of that is also the fact that, yes, the inflation is still going up and still being hard on everybody. And some of the things that were on sale over the summer are no longer on sale, like Mio. Mio that usually goes at Woodman's for $3 per pod is now up to $3.50 because the summer sales are over. But I've been eating a little bit better as far as I go. Like, I'm not getting the bottom of the bargain basement cheap meats and things like that, and living on hot dogs and constant just. I was eating so bad. Even on keto, I was eating really, really bad. But I can afford to take it up just a little bit. I'm not rich by any means, but I can afford to take it up just a touch at this point. But I also noticed too, like under any other circumstance, and yes, I'll admit that when I was living down by Janesville, I was living essentially paycheck to paycheck. My rent had risen to the point where a week's pay didn't cover rent. And it was pretty much right on the edge beforehand. But what I did notate as well when I looked at that is the fact that, again, I've been paying essentially double rent for the entire time I've lived here. Which means I'm not living paycheck to paycheck anymore. And even when I was going double rent, I realized, just out of the blue, and spending normally, like I normally would have otherwise, that I had forgotten my truck payment. I was sitting in my dad's truck on Saturday night. I was sitting in my dad's truck. Kind of looked down at my phone. I'm like, what day is today? Wait, did I pay my truck payment this month? And then I just got on the Capital One app and, I guess I wasn't supposed to go back and divulge who owns and who I'm credited through. But I got on the app for the bank that owns my truck. Hopefully nobody noticed what I just said there. And made the payment real quick. Without even thinking about it. Without having to worry. Without having to check my balance. Well, I had just checked my balance earlier that day, but without even having to worry. I'm just like, okay, here's the money for my truck payment. That's a position that I have not been in for a very long time. And I'm thankful for that. I still look at this. I still look at what I've done, where I've been. It's not been the easiest transition. I can definitely understand that. And I still have worry that, they're going to find some way to pocket. I know I'm not getting my security deposit back in my own place. But they're also going to find some way to go and take me to court and try to build another 5 figures out of me. This was a very, very non-reputable company. I'm not going to name names for them right now because there may be pending lawsuits with this. And there may be pending court cases. And it's really hard to win your court case if you're on complaining about them by name on air somewhere. It's really hard to show that you were the aggrieved party in this, if you're calling them out by name. So I'm not going to say their name until I know for sure that there's not going to be any pending attempt to go get another 10 grand out of me for reasons unknown, anything else like that. But some of the transition with that, looking over, trying to make sure that I get new tires, and even meeting new people and getting new people in my life, trying to budget time. Whereas I was pretty much coming home, going to work, doing contemporary, and then playing video games all by myself with nobody around me. Some of the transition has been for the better, some of it's been for the worse, but it's been a transition. But just opening up that app, paying the truck payment, like that, without even thinking about it, without even having to worry, is a position that I have not been in a very long time, and I'm thankful for that. It restores my faith in humanity, and it restores my faith in myself, especially. And with that, let's head out of here for the day. Oh look, we already changed the scene. Well, let's change up the music and head out of here then. So, thanks everybody who came by and chatted in the live chat. And yes, by the way, if you would like to come back and donate to the J. Edgar Fund, there are ways to do that as well, and I will be revamping some of the links. There will also be some new ways coming up here in the near future. I'll be talking to someone at the bank, and we'll be filing some new LLCs coming up. So there will be some new things changing in the future. And hey, maybe within the next 5 years, I'll be completely self-employed. Work from home. I hope not, because I am feeling a little bit bloated right now, but some things will come along with that. And I do think that we can make the change out here and turn things around and make things really, really awesome. We'll be back here tomorrow with more news, more headlines, more contemporary, and I got a couple things I like and a couple things that I hate, including one we've already talked about. Whoops. But we'll talk about that again tomorrow on that segment. Definitely looking forward to that. And more of your live chats, more of your hanging out, and seeing that little number, that corner on the bottom, saying, hey, that's how many people watching. I always love seeing you guys here. Come back again. Come back and see me. We'll talk about some news. Hopefully, the news will pick up a little bit here. So we're not talking just about the debt ceiling and the Biden documents some more. But, slow news weeks happen too. We'll see you here tomorrow. Take care. Have a good night. And until then, I'm J. Edgar. And this is Contemporary. Take care.